I'm so sorry it's so late. I'm putting this video up at 7 o'clock at night. Oh my goodness, I've been so busy today. I did have the brilliant opportunity of popping in school just super quickly to see a few people and say hi. So that was really nice to see you. And I just thought I'd do just a very super quick story because it's Friday, so I always do a story on Friday. And it's by one of my most favourite authors ever. When I was a child, I read all of her books. Her name's Enid Blyton. So she's got a book called Stories of Magic and Mischief. Now, the only thing is there's no pictures. So I can't show you the pictures, but you can have to use your imagination. See if you can imagine what you think these characters are like and what they might be up to. So today I am going to read A Peculiar Adventure. And it's from Enid Blyton's Stories of Magic and Mischief. Let's see what happens. A Peculiar Adventure. Meow, said a voice just down by Ronnie's feet. He looked down, but he couldn't see anything, which wasn't very surprising because there was a thick fog that hid even the houses nearby. Where are you? Said Ronnie. You're a cat, I suppose, and you're lost in the fog. Meow, said the cat in a louder voice and rubbed itself against Ronnie's legs. He switched on his torch and looked down. My word, what a wonderful cat you are, he said. As black as soot and with eyes as green as cucumbers. Are you lost? Where do you live? Meow, 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 said the cat, as if it was explaining where its home was. Then Ronnie noticed that it wore a little collar round its neck with a disc hanging from it. Perhaps its name and address were on that. He looked at the disc in the light of his torch. Yes, here's your name, I suppose, Cinders, and your address, Wizard Cottage, Hanger Lane. Well, Hanger Lane isn't far away, Cinders, so I'll take you there and find your house, Wizard Cottage. What a strange name for a house. I've never noticed it before. Come along, keep at my heels and we'll soon be there. The cat kept close to Ronnie as he went down the road and round the corner. The little boy flashed his torch on the name on each gate. Holly Trees, that's not it. Little Abbey, that's not it either. What's this one? Red Roofs. I do hope we shan't have to go all down the road before we find it, and then back again down the opposite side. Meow, said the cat. Ronnie went on down the road, looking for Wizard Cottage, and there it was. The very, very last house in the row, the one on the corner. Its name was on the gate, Wizard Cottage. Here we are, said Ronnie. Shall I ring the bell and hand you in, Puss? If I leave you wandering about outside, you may get lost again. I'll ring or knock. He knocked because there was no bell. The knocker was very strange. It was in the shape of a hand, and Ronnie felt as if it was shaking hands with him when he knocked. The door opened, but nobody stood behind it. Ronnie hesitated. He didn't like to go in, but the cat walked straight in, turned round and looked at Ronnie. Meow, it said politely. Do come in, shouted a voice, and shut the door. The fog's spoiling my work. Ronnie went in and shut the door. He walked up a very long passage and found himself in a perfectly round room. He stared in amazement. A fire with green flames came up from a hole in the middle of the floor. Over it hung a great golden pot in which something boiled and bubbled, singing an odd little tune the whole time. A tall man in a flowing black cloak and a high-pointed hat was pouring something into the pot. The cat ran up to him and rubbed itself against his legs. So you've come back, Cinders, he said. Didn't I tell you not to go out into the fog? You're too late to help me now, and I don't feel at all pleased with you. Please excuse me, said Ronnie, feeling puzzled and excited. I found your lost cat and brought him back. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't see you, said the tall man, turning round with a smile that lit up his whole face and made Ronnie like him very much. You came in with Cinders, I suppose. Thank you for looking after him. He's no good in a fog, but he will go out in them. Ronnie didn't know what to say. He stared at the bubbling pot and was astonished to see the liquid in it change suddenly from green to yellow and then to a bright silver. "Excuse me a moment. I really must stir this," said the man. "By the way, I should introduce myself, shouldn't I? I'm Mr. Spells." "I'm Ronnie James," said Ronnie. "Meow," said the cat. "Don't keep interrupting," said Mr. Spells. "Oh, you want some milk, do you? Ronnie, stir this mixture for me, will you, and I'll get Cinder some milk." Ronnie found himself stirring the strange bubbling mixture. Some of it splashed over the edge of the pot onto his right shoe. "Oh dear, what a good thing I've got my very oldest shoes on," said Ronnie. "Mr. Spells, what is this mixture you're making?" "Oh, just some invisible paint," said Mr. Spells. "Once it cools, you can use it on anything, and it makes any object invisible. You can't see it, you know, when you've dabbed it with this. Very useful sometimes." Ronnie began to tremble. Was this man a wizard? His house was called Wizard Cottage, and his name was Mr. Spells. He had a black cat too, as all witches and wizards had. "You needn't be afraid of me," said Mr. Spells kindly. "I can see you trembling. There are bad wizards and good ones, just as there are bad boys and good boys. Well, I'm a good wizard. I hope you're a good boy." "Mother says I am," said Ronnie, still trembling a little. Then he heard a clock strike 5. "Oh dear, is it really 5 o'clock? I must go then, because Mother will worry if I don't get back in time. She'll think I'm lost in the fog." "Well, thank you again for bringing cinders home," said Mr. Spells. "Perhaps you will come and have tea with me tomorrow. I'd be delighted to see you. I could teach you quite a lot of interesting things." "Oh, thank you. I'd love to come to tea," said Ronnie, delighted. "I'll be along at 4:30 after school. Goodbye, Mr. Spells. Goodbye, Cinders." "Meow," said Cinders. Ronnie stroked him and then went down the passage and let himself out of the front door. He walked home in the fog, feeling quite dazed. What a very peculiar adventure! And to think he was going to tea with Mr. Spells the next day. With a wizard! He must be a wizard. How very exciting! His mother laughed when he told her about his adventure. "You've been dreaming in the fog," she said. "But go if you like, and just ask Mr. Spells if he can give me a bit of magic to keep the fire from going out. It's behaving very badly lately." So the next afternoon, Ronnie set off. He went all the way down Hanger Lane to the corner. But dear me, what was this? The house at the corner was called Thornfield, not Wizard Cottage. Then where was Wizard Cottage? It should be next to Thornfield on the corner. But it wasn't. There was no house beyond Thornfield. It was a very puzzling thing. No matter how hard Ronnie hunted, he simply could not find Wizard Cottage. Well, all I can think is that Mr. Spells must have painted his house with his invisible paint, thought Ronnie. I'll just have to keep a lookout for old Cinders. I might see him and get him to take me into the house again some day. Ronnie's mother wasn't a bit surprised to see Ronnie coming home without having found the house. "It was all nonsense," she said. "You made it up or dreamt it." But now I'll tell you a very peculiar thing. Do you remember that some of the mixture in the pot splashed over onto Ronnie's right shoe? Well, when it cooled, it made the whole shoe invisible. So now Ronnie can't see it, and he's been hunting high and low for it. And it's there in his cupboard, lying behind the left shoe, but it can't be seen. You might tell him if you see him. There we go, a peculiar adventure. Now, that was a bit of a strange one, wasn't it? We shouldn't really go into strangers' houses if we don't know them, definitely not. But he had a bit of an interesting adventure, an interesting meeting with a wizard whose house then suddenly became invisible. I wish I could do that sometimes. Invisibility cloak, wouldn't that be cool? Maybe if we find this Mr. Spells somewhere, we can ask to borrow some of his invisible paint. Have a really lovely weekend. It's supposed to be nice and sunny, so I hope you get a chance to go outside. And I will see you all again next week. Bye-bye.